Hello there, my name is Sixo, but more on that later because right now I'm honestly wondering, is black and purple the best Transformers colour scheme of them all? Like, it's gotta be up there, right? It's just such a good combination. It looks so pleasing on the eye, as evidenced by this handsome devil, which is of course one of the latest MDLX efforts from threezero. And yes, it's a non-transforming figure, which I appreciate may have some of you reaching to turn off the channel already, but bear with me because what it lacks in the conversion department, it more than makes up for in other ways, as we're gonna see. Now, before we kick off, I should mention that this video is brought to you by CowKissToy.com, a premium action figure and collectibles site which specialise in a range of high-end products, including plenty of Transformers-related merch. They've got absolutely tons of stuff to browse, and they specialise in fast and free delivery, not to mention that if you check out the link in the description below, you get a little bit of a discount as well, so that's pretty good, isn't it? So when Skywarp first arrives in his very attractive box, this is kind of how he looks. Fair to say there's some assembly required. It's not like model kit level stuff, but first of all you get this wing backpack thing which needs to be put into place, and there's this pair of null rays which of course can go on his arms or can be held in hand for a bit of a twist. You then get this little pair of blade accessories which, to be honest, are a bit of a pain in the arse, but we'll see why in just a minute. You get several sets of different swap out hands, 3 different sets on top of the default ones anyway, and then 2 additional face options as well, one of which I like and one of which I don't. So firstly you just want to get that wing backpack thing installed, and it's very easy to do. It just kind of plugs in like so, and it actually feels really solid once it's in, like it's not going to come away or come loose or anything like that. It may as well just be part of the main body. Then you have those null rays which just plug right onto the sides of his shoulders, and then if you want to you can put those blade weapons on the wings like so, and they actually kind of complete the look. I mean, it's a really interesting silhouette. It's just they don't really hold in place very well, so they kind of wobble around and they will just fall out pretty easily as well, so that's a bit of a pain, as I say, but they do look nice at least. And there you go, that's kind of the completed look. I mean, obviously there are some of those additional pieces as well, like the swap out hands and faces, but other than that, this is your completed MDLX Skywarp, and I think he looks fantastic. Love the silhouette of this thing. He's quite chunky actually versus your typical kind of G1 Seeker look, but I think it kind of works on this design. Very greebly, tons of detailing going on, really nice paint, and just overall a very well presented figure. I mean, the whole ethos here is kind of G1 but new, right? Like it's super stylized but kind of classic, and you see that in elements such as the face, which absolutely feels like the G1 Seeker mold. It really looks like Skywarp, but it has stylistic elements to it as well, but super nicely presented. Love those piercing red eyes, all the kind of detail around the face. It kind of makes it feel like a live action version of the character somehow, or like an alternative to what we got in live action anyway, and to that end I really think it works. And there's just an incredible level of detail here, down to a very fine level of sculpting and lines and things like this in areas such as the helmet. It absolutely pays off to give it a close inspection. You also see that on areas such as the neck and chest, which are just chock full of detailing and paint and everything else, and the finish is really striking. It just looks uber detailed, uber premium up close. You know, a lot of that moldy detail again is picked out with paint, and it's got this kind of wash over it as well, which gives it an almost grubby look, but it really feels like metal actually. Like even up close it looks metallic. And again you see that on areas such as those little vent boobs as well, which are just really nicely picked out in terms of the detail, the finish. It's quite spectacular. Nice vibrant shiny gold paint on the cockpit chest there, that looks really good. You know, even here on the shoulder pad, it's a little thing, but those little flecks of metallic silver just add so much. Similarly here on the crotch you've got all those kind of details coming together. I mean, you've got the kind of gold paint, which is a bit unprecedented. They didn't have to do that, but it really adds something. And again, it's got those kind of stylistic elements that separate it from the kind of classic G1 as well. Nice little touch of blue on these knee vents, that's a bit unexpected. And you can really see what I'm talking about with that level of detail when you come around to the side of the leg, because you've got little touches of gold, the silver on the kind of pipes around here, the gold and silver down on the heel as well. It's just gorgeous. I mean, if we come around to the back here, you can see he's got these little thrusters in the back of his leg, which is a cool touch because again, it's the back of the leg. You wouldn't necessarily kind of think to look for this kind of detail back here, but there it is, and it's appreciated, and this all just looks wonderful. Then you come around to the backpack and it's all going off. You got gorgeous colours, nice little gold highlights, some incredible detail as well. And this is the kind of thing I'm talking about. They didn't have to put the gold on these little nubs just there, but they did, and it looks so good. In fact, probably my only real critique is this purple on the wings, which just looks a little bit splodgy and just kind of not saturated enough, like it could have just done with being a bit thicker to kind of make it stand out more. Overall though, there's really no denying this thing's charms when it comes to being visually appealing, because it's just a real treat for the eyes all over. I mean, it's well beyond your kind of typical Transformers fare, to the point where actually I think if you've not seen this threezero MDLX stuff in hand before, you might be quite surprised by just how nice it is. And look, inevitably someone will say, yeah, but it doesn't transform. And I get it, I totally do. I mean, absolutely, I love my Transformers figures to transform as well, but in this case, it does offer a few benefits that classic, more traditional Transformers don't, let's put it that way. I mean, a big part of that is the articulation, and you really see what I'm talking about in areas such as the head and neck, because actually they're separate pieces, and both of them articulate. I mean, they're both kind of on ball joints, so it gives you a huge range of motion to pose the head and the neck kind of however you want. Same is true of the shoulders, which are actually on two joints connected to the body. I mean, there's a sort of ball joint in there and then a hinge as well, which actually if you kind of move the shoulder pad up and out the way, you can kind of see a little bit more obviously. And it's just very expressive. I mean, it means that the arms will move all the way up and out for one thing. You also get a good bit of butterfly action in there, but beyond that, it's just the range and the kind of motion and fluidity of the joints that really makes them feel quite expressive. There is a bit of bicep swivel going on with a bit of a squeak and a double jointed elbow, which is really good, but even then you get a little bit more motion just here in the forearm as well, so just a bit more than you might anticipate. Now, there's no articulation in the hands themselves, of course you get those swappable options, but you do get plenty of movement at the wrist because they're on ball joints. Now, one of my favourite bits of movement on any threezero figure is the ab crunch, because it's always done so well, and so it is here, to be fair. I mean, I love the way that this cockpit section kind of collapses in on itself as you crunch the abs just there. That's very cool. You also get a decent bit of waist swivel, bit squeaky again, but it definitely works. Now, one of the elements of design I really don't like so much on these MDLX figures is the hip skirts, because they're all these kind of pieces that you have to kind of move out of the way in order to get any kind of meaningful articulation at the hips, and it just looks a little bit unsightly to me. Like, it's really not my favorite choice of design, and they're also on these tiny little ball joints, so very often they will just kind of pop off as well and need to be put back into place, and it's not so bad on Skywarp here actually, but worse on some of the other figures. I mean, once you have moved them out of the way, you do get a decent range of motion just there. I mean, the hips will come up to just a little bit under 90 degrees, so actually it probably could be better, to be fair, but there is a swivel in there as well, again, that squeak going on, and a decent range of motion out of there. I mean, there's definitely a lot of range in those hips, it's just slightly impeded because of the hip skirts, I think. Very decent range of motion at the knee though, because there's an initial bend which goes to just a little bit under 90 degrees, and then a second bend which will actually kind of take it all the way, which is not bad considering how chunky these lower legs are. I'm also quite a fan of how bending the leg and the knee kind of reveals these additional bits of detail in there as well. Really nice touch. There's then quite a bit happening in the foot area, including these little panels on the sides which will flare out actually, so that's a really nice touch for a little bit of a stylistic choice, let's put it that way. And you do get a decent ankle tilt just there from side to side, and there's a rotation as well, so that's pretty cool, and you get decent movement in the toes. But yeah, my only real bugbear with posing is these hip skirts, as I say, because the other thing is you just kind of can't get them out the way when you move the legs up or whatever. They just kind of stick out, and it's kind of annoying. And here you can kind of see what I mean, because although the overall pose is super cool in my opinion, that hip skirt just kind of kills it a little bit once you focus in on it. I don't know, it's not bad, but it's just a bit of a compromise in my opinion. Like, I just absolutely prefer hip skirts that work with the legs a little bit more fluidly than this, because it's just a bit disjointed visually for my liking. The other thing that is a little bit strange is that it's quite hard to get his null rays pointing forwards at a decent angle where it looks like he'd actually be shooting them, just because of this bit kind of impeding the articulation just there kind of on the shoulder. And it's not bad, but it's just not quite to the level I would want. I mean, that shoulder pad looks very raised up in order for it to work, and even then he kind of looks like he's shooting down. I mean, maybe he's just shooting humans, I don't know. The other thing here is I would have loved to have been able to fan out these wings somehow, or just move them a little bit even, because it absolutely looks like you should be able to, thanks to this kind of little cylinder bit just in there, but they actually don't move, which is super strange, honestly. And the other slight annoyance here, as I've already mentioned, is these bits, which just do pop out far too easily. I mean, very, very cumbersome, quite annoying to have to keep replacing them, even though they do look good as part of the silhouette. And look, at no point do I mean to imply that he's not poseable, because he absolutely is. There's just a couple of weird compromises along the way, I guess, but he still looks great in a little running pose, and surprisingly stable actually, and solid as well. I mean, a bit of a wobble to it, but you can tell that he's not really going anywhere. Now, in order to swap out the hands, the first thing you'll need to do is remove the default set, and they're just on these little ball joints. They just prise off like so, at which point you can bring in the replacement hand, and these can be a little bit fiddly, not gonna lie. That's gone on really easily, but sometimes you will find yourself struggling with these more than you might like. And of course you can mix and match the various sets here, but the first alternative you get is this pair of open hand jobbers. In fact, you kind of get two of them, I mean two different sets, and it's weird because they're not that different, right? Like one just has the fingers slightly more splayed than the other. I think you probably could have got away with just one of these sets. The other option is this little weapon hand-holdy pair, and if you have those in place, then of course you can do things like plug the null rays in, and I think that's kind of neat. I mean, you don't see the Seekers holding their null rays very often. It has happened in Transformers history before, believe it or not, but this is a nice inclusion. I mean, options are never a bad thing, and so it is here. You can also use those same weapon hands to hold the knives as well, and the only reason I haven't shown this on camera is that I try to keep this channel family friendly, and honestly this process is so frustrating. It kind of feels like bits are going to bend or snap or whatever, so it's definitely not my favourite part of the process at all, but it's a nice idea, just maybe the execution doesn't quite work. You can do it with both of them if you really want to. I mean, look, again, really cool idea. It's just a shame that those bits fall out so easily, and then they're kind of annoying to use as blades as well. I'm not sure it quite comes together, but hey ho. Then we come to the face swap part, and the first thing to do, of course, is to take his face off. Of the two other options available, my favourite is definitely this smirk, and it is maybe distinctly a bit more Starscream than it is Skywarp, but still it looks great and it fits really nicely, so gives him a lot of character. The other option is this, which is, yeah, it's an interesting one. I mean, what would you have mistaken that for? I don't know, the instructions call it a sinister face. I guess it is kind of sinister, but probably not in the way that they intended, because it's just a bit odd. I'm going to be leaving that one in the box, I reckon. Overall, though, there's a lot to really like about the look and feel of this figure, and I think whilst it does have its quirks and, you know, those hip skirts and a few little things around the articulation and the swords, and yeah, there are bits and bobs, overall, as I say, it's really quite a knockout. I just absolutely love the way it looks. I love messing around with it. It's definitely something a little bit different to your typical Transformers fare, and I think that's good. You know, you want that kind of variety sometimes in collecting, and I can absolutely see this appealing to people that maybe your standard retail Transformers just don't. I mean, here you can see him with the original version of this mold, which of course is Starscream, and they're quite different actually in terms of presentation. I mean, a couple of the colorways are different, things like this, so that's really nice to see. But before anybody asks, no, I don't have Thundercracker, although there is one, and I'm kind of feeling the need for it now. I'm not going to lie, it's just the nature of these things with Seekers, isn't it? Then you can see him with their gorgeous, shiny Megatron figure, and probably my only real grumble here is that I'm not sure the Seekers should be that smidge taller. Like, if you look at them at head height, it's roughly the same, but I think the Seekers do just about take it, and with the wings and everything else, they just look that bit more bulky as well, which is strange to my eye, but still a really good lineup so far. And then here we have him with some of the other recent MDLX efforts, including Rodimus, who is actually, I think, probably my favourite of this line so far. He's just pretty spectacular, and Optimus Prime, which actually is really not my favourite. It might actually be the weakest one, I think, in some ways. Like, don't get me wrong, it's still good, but just a little bit wonky and kind of doesn't hang together as nicely as some of the others, so it's strange to see. Then we have him with some of the smaller MDLX efforts, including Cliffjumper, Bumblebee, and the awesome Sideswipe as well. And this is a really interesting lineup. I can't wait to see what they do next as well. I just kind of love this really sort of super stylized, nicely overhauled take on the kind of classic G1 designs. It really works for me. I will say though that I'll have to see if my interest is maintained if Takara Tomy keep doing spectacular stuff like this recent T-Spark Rodimus, because it's just as, if not more poseable, it's got the super amazing premium painted finish, and it transforms, so that could really kind of knock the sheen off the threezero stuff, but we'll have to see. For today though, I'm happy to admire this figure for what it is. It's just a gorgeous Skywarp, and you can see it here alongside the original G1 toy and the recent retro cartoon coloured reissue as well. And fun fact, this colour scheme was made up for Transformers. It was never present on the original Diaclone toy at all, but for my money, it's just about as good as Seeker colour schemes get, right? And for that, and everything else this figure does well, in spite of its quirks, it's absolutely got to be a toot. Now, as already mentioned, this review is brought to you by CalkisToy.com, a premium action figure and collectibles store for which you can find a link in the video description below, and if you go ahead and check that out, you may even find that you get a little bit of a discount as well, so what you're waiting for. I'd also be very grateful if you could leave me a like for today's effort, please, but otherwise that's it from me, so have a great rest of your day, and TTFN.